Good evening. We said we'd start at 7, so we're going to, because we want to make sure everybody has as much time as they want to, this is for you. We want to hear from you. I'm Dan Natchez, a trustee of the village, on the trustee liaison to the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee. There are a couple of ground rules that I've been asked to explain. This is to hear from you. We're not giving speeches. We're here to try and answer questions, hear concerns and ideas. If you have specific questions from the Army Corps of Engineers meeting next week, Peggy has pad and paper. If you write them down, we will get them to the Corps and have them answered at the meeting. Hopefully. That's the game plan. Anyway, so we have a portable mic. So if anybody wants to speak, they need to raise their hand. There is a voluntary sign-in sheet because we're trying to collect emails to keep everybody informed. Okay? And this is Tony Gilbert, who is our champion and our chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Dan. So first, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I wanted to just thank the members of the Flood Committee for all the work they did in the last couple of years. I just got back on the Flood Committee in December. So Peg Jackson, thank you, and Stephen Glenner. Anybody else here? Somebody I miss you guys, but thank you. So we wanted to get information from you, questions from you for the Corps. Next Wednesday, May 18th, 7 p.m., the Emmeline. So if you go on the village website, we've asked people to try to get tickets because we're afraid that 10,000 people are going to come, maybe not 10,000. So go on the website and you can get a free ticket, right? There's also a spot on there where you can enter your questions, right? So if you don't either want to do it here tonight or you want to use this as an alternate, you can put the questions right on that website, okay? So the only announcements, the announcements I have is that next Wednesday is this meeting with the Corps. The purpose of the meeting is for the Corps to try to tell us, explain to us what they're going to do and what stage they're in the process, right? Because when we looked at the plan 16-17, that was the plan that got approved by the Corps down in Washington. The problem was it didn't get funded. It didn't get funded, right? So as far as we know, meaning the Flood Committee and Dan and the village, they're proceeding on that plan and they're in the design phase. We've asked them to reevaluate it a bit just to see because the Ida flows were really bad. And I want to thank Laura and James Abadi and who took me, one of our members, Andrew Spatz, took me through the industrial area, and we looked at where the watermarks were. So I sent that to the Army Corps just so that they could get a sense of how bad the water was. So if you have an initial question that the public might want to hear, you can ask it now. Other than that, we're going to give the mic out. We ask you to be to the point and give yourself a little time limit. I tend to be the arbiter of who's next, and so people get mad at me, but we have to have a little bit of, otherwise no one will get the point. So any just general questions on anything like meetings or anything?
Or any questions that people would like to write down for the Corps?
There's paper and pencil there if you need it. Well, thank you very much, and then we'll start with questions after Dan.
Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to thank Luis, who will help translate any questions in Spanish and the answers in Spanish. Otherwise, the meeting is being run in English. And I want to thank Anthony from LMC-TV, LMC Media, for being here tonight. And this is being carried live as we talk. Thank you. So anybody who has a question or a comment, we'd like to hear from you. Not only questions, but ideas, suggestions, and concerns.
So everyone understands the handout that you took when you came in. These are questions the Corps already has been given by FMAC. They've been sent several times, and we're hoping to have those questions answered, if not before the meeting, after.
So what do you really want? The pots of money where you can just come and, I have the big pots of money back here on my left, but I'm guarding them.
This gentleman, did your house get flooded?
Did my house get flooded?
Yes.
No.
Then you really don't know how we feel. We're ready to string someone up because I've lived here for 60 years, and I've seen this issue skirted for 60 years. It has to stop now.
So, John, let me respond.
Get somebody who's been underwater. I had 9 feet of water in my house. And you can see I'm not very happy about this.
So, John, let me respond to that, because I walked around with Laura and James, and I took my wife with me because I didn't want to be accused of anything inappropriate. My wife thought I was a little bit idiotic, but she tends to think that in general. No. But when we got back to the house, her sense was, Tony, you have a lot of people who feel they've been neglected year after year. So I think that what you're saying is probably the feelings of everybody in this room. I think the only hope we have this time is that we have $88 million, right? We went through this process in 16 and 17, and it got stopped because there wasn't any money. So right now, I think that we have $88 million, we've got the Corps on board, we've got the politicians on board, and I really want to thank the people who've come to, we have our monthly meetings, and I don't know which meeting it was, maybe the March meeting. We had, some of you came on the meeting and started complaining, like you were, and
Oh, I'm not complaining. You
well,
haven't heard the complaining yet.
But I think the village officials heard, because since that meeting, they are starting to clean the rivers. They're talking about dredging the rivers. We're now talking about more of a holistic approach, that whatever the Army Corps can't do or won't do, we're gonna try to fund it through other sources, right? So the way I think it's Lou Young and maybe the mayor said, I'm calling it a holistic watershed approach. They're saying parallel projects. If we can't get the dam through the Army Corps, let's go to the county, let's go to the state, let's go to the feds. But we have to have this, I think it's this parallel approach. And I'll say one more thing and then I'll be quiet, because Dan is always telling me you talk too much, besides my wife. No, she says I don't talk enough. And I know women always talk more. So anyway, when you look at the walls of water that hit Mamaroneck, right? When I was down with Laura and James in Washingtonville, it's like 8 to 10 feet of water, like 50 feet wide. And when I was with Peggy in Harbor Heights, we had 8 to 10 feet of water, probably at spots 100 feet wide. So, okay, yeah, so I don't want to exaggerate, because then they tell me I'm exaggerating.
As an engineer, he knows.
You should be at my house when that happens, and you see how wide it is. It was from the road on Villa Avenue all the way to Harrison on the other side.
Okay, I believe you.
Far away.
Okay, so we have a huge amount of water, and we have to, I think this parallel effort, Army Corps, the village and the county and the state, we have to attack this. And it might take 10 years, because the Corps...
No, we don't have 10 years.
We don't, but the
And you want to talk about a parallel effort? This is the parallel effort. This water that we're drowning in is not from just Mamaroneck. Mamaroneck cannot put that much water in that river to drown all these people. It comes from Harrison, all those beautiful corporate parks. Where do they dump? Right in the reservoir. It comes from White Plains. It comes from, yes, anything connected to that Hutchinson
Larchmont, New
River,
Rochelle.
we get it. And you know what? I'm a plumber, and we have a saying, that crap flows downhill. Guess what? We're downhill. And these other people who are flushing us, they need to be involved. And the Army Corps should go knock on their doors. Why do we have the burden of fixing this just for ourselves?
Well,
I mean, you go to the Sheldrake River. It's a disgrace. There's so much crap in that river, and they just keep dumping that water into us. Come on, get the town of Mamaroneck involved, get Larchmont involved, because otherwise, where are they going to put their water?
all right, so I hear, and thank you for your comments, a
It's never
watershed
addressed. This has
approach.
never been addressed.
It's never been addressed, I agree. So I'm hopeful that this time we're going to address it. So let's just hold everybody's people to the fire, whatever that expression is.
So that could be number 10. Number 10, hold the upper
Oh.
the
Yes.
watershed accountable.
Okay, all right. So
Very good point.
That's really an Army Corps good question.
we sent that in already.
Handle the counties separately.
All right. A yellow shirt, okay.
Hi, my name is Rich Ferguson. I live at the very end of Urban Street, right on the river, okay? And thank God, literally, we have never gotten water in our house. It just has come up, this last time Ida, it came up right up to the edge of the house and did not flood. But the basketball court across from my house, 9 feet of water at the end of Urban Street. My main question here is, are we looking at like a really comprehensive plan? I mean, it's been years now since the Army Corps got involved. But my question really is, I mean, we've gone from, oh, let's raise 6 houses, they're the only ones at risk, to where the fact that the 3 houses behind me, okay, on Winfield, should have been torn down and destroyed because they've been flooded so many times, okay? It goes across into Harrison. 10 feet deep is pretty impressive when you're looking out your dining room window, okay? Yeah, I didn't have water in my house. But if we're raising 6 houses by the Army Corps of Engineers, that's not gonna do anything. That whole basin has to be widened, the bridge to nowhere has to be gone, okay? I mean, it has to be a comprehensive plan from the reservoir all the way down to the sound. And if it isn't, we're just kicking the can down the road.
All right, Peggy lives.
I know
I'm
where
your
Peggy-
neighbors.
I know where
So-
Peggy lives, sure I know.
So
I
in our
can see your
neighborhood,
house.
in our neighborhood, this time in Harbor Heights, in '07, excuse me, we had 5 homes that had water in their living quarters. In 2021, we had 21 homes that had water in their living quarters. So one of the main questions we have asked the Corps is, your proposal is to raise 6 to 8 homes. Wouldn't this money be better used channelizing or in a different manner so that we can help everyone? Because how do you say, I'm raising your house, I'm not raising your house?
Right.
It's insane.
Right.
So that's one of the questions that we have already asked the Corps 3 times. We haven't gotten an answer yet, but that's what we're hoping they will come back and give us some information on. The project needs to be tweaked. Can't be completely redesigned. The project was designed based on 2007 flood levels. 2021 is a whole different game.
Right.
So the whole project needs to be
But
looked at without changing it to the point where we have to start again.
So I've been in the house for 17 years now. I moved in 2005, okay? Since 2005, I'm going to say there's been 6 floods that's come across there. The 3 houses on Winfield get flooded every time. It goes by me, but the poor people across the street, the house has been sold 4 times.
I know.
And each time it's been sold, it's been flooded within 6 months of the new people buying it, okay? I'm just saying, you know, it's not a case of tweaking the plan unless the plan is comprehensive enough where it's solving the problem.
These are questions that we have to ask the
Okay.
Corps on
I'm
Wednesday.
just
We
saying,
can't, we
you know,
can't
I'm
as
just-
a local group answer
you
them
know,
for
it's
you.
not-
We have requested answers from them on
It's not
this.
the confluence of the Sheldrake and Mamaroneck rivers. It goes all the way back. I know you know this.
Yep.
I'm just making the point.
No, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so let's do Laura and then over here. All right, John, you got to wait again. And then, yeah, so let's do Laura. What was your name? Daniel. Daniel? We'll do Daniel and then Carolina. All right, Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Body. I live on Washington Street. I live in the flats, 4th generation. I have a few questions separate than everything else that my comment text is in regard to flooding. My concern is, why are we taking watermarks that are inaccurate? How come we have not had an engineering firm or a company hit the ground day one to do these interviews with the residents and get that information correct? Because the flats was a continuous Lake Superior, straight through. There were no breaks in water. It was over your head. We walked down on Plaza and we deciphered that the water was well over the Madison street sign. From the bottom of the brook to the top of a street sign gives you a good 24 feet of water. And a lot of that has to do with the private transfer station, which was Suburban Carting, acting as a dam itself that needs to be removed because it was built on a floodway, or the water, it's literally right on the water. But why are we, as a community, lay people, no disrespect to any of us, because I'm sure we all have the ingenuity and the capability to measure, but a real true company. Why aren't they here hitting the ground, asking these questions, and why weren't we prepared to answer these questions at this point 9 months later? And why are we guessing at the water levels, at how much we all had, or how bad it was? We know that. We should have been interviewed. This should have been real data, real hard data. But my question is, we're talking about the dam, the road to nowhere. This all has a huge part in everything, and water is going and it's running down, and we are at the bottom of the bowl. Why don't we have an answer from someone as to how come this happened? Where are the engineers and the hydrologists to say, you had an astronomical amount of rain, you have river clogging, you have a dam that's in despair? How come we're still here running around in circles asking these questions? Why aren't the professionals doing that for us? This is far greater than Mamaroneck Village, Mamaroneck Town. This is state, this is county. This is everybody involved. How come, and I really think as a village we deserve that answer. How come we don't have an answer for that at this moment?
So Laura, I'm only going to respond to what I can. I will say, I will send an email to the project manager, the Army Corps project manager, asking that question and requesting a hydrologist engineer / survey ASAP. What I did put in the flood marks that you and Jimmy helped me with was that the waste center and the Mason buildings appear to be blocking the floodplain. So I did include that, as you had said the other day. But other than that, and I'll tell the project manager that please expect this question Wednesday, okay?
Remember, Bethany wasn't the project manager until recently.
Okay, so what Peggy's saying is
The current project manager was not on board when the storm hit. She came on, I think, March-ish, February-ish? So she wasn't even involved with the Corps. Whoever, I think it was all kind of up in the air at the Corps. Was the project going to take place because it had been defunded? So really it got kick-started again because of Ida.
That I can understand.
I don't know for sure, I'm just
But
supposing.
even with that being the case, there's project managers, they're not indispensable, they're there. The job should have been done not at this level. This was catastrophic. Catastrophic.
Right.
And answers need to be had, reasons why, where was it coming from, what was the difference, what was the change, what was the height, what was different from your flood in '07 to now? All that's real data. Where did the water come from this time? You have Bernie Camarda talking about the dam. You have us talking about the transfer station. These are all components and moving parts that matter and that are causing one huge, giant conundrum.
Okay. Thank you, Laura.
I think
All
there's
right.
one quick thing I just want to mention is, we have to look forward to a certain extent. We do have engineers that we're hiring that for Mamaroneck, for the village. So some of that, hopefully, with that engineering expertise in-house. Yeah, so hopefully that will help going forward.
But we can't wait 6 months for that. 6 months for another 10 years.
All right, let's just stick to our order. So Daniel, you're next, please. So it's going to be Daniel, this young lady, and then Norm. All right, we'll do, okay.
Thank you. My name is Daniel. I live on Center Avenue. And for the last few years, it's been flooded too many times until the big one hit. We had 2 feet, 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet of water on the street, and we're on edge. I can't sleep well. Every night it's been raining since this big one. I can't sleep. I am terrified. I have sandbags. Number one, structural disaster, that's one thing. Lives, people can drown. The water was coming in like a river that night. I had to walk the streets, carry generators to number one, Con Edison will cut the power, your pumps will not work or anything. You just have to get out and go up and hope for the best. The rain stopped that night. The tide was low. I was walking around the harbor. The water was down. The water was still rising. Where is it coming from? Like John said, we are being flushed like we're a toilet here from the big rich neighborhoods. No disrespect to them too, that's fine, but we are people. Is that $88 million going to be enough? That's probably a beginning. That's probably a design. It's going to be millions of dollars in time. Time is number one. Every time it rains, like I said, it could happen, and there's warnings. Oh, flood warnings. So it could happen tomorrow night, okay? So what do? This should be brought up to not the state, the feds. This is big, this is huge, this is all of coastal line, okay? All these towns.
All right, so we've talked, thank you, Daniel. So, and believe me, I had a little house upstate that when I was a kid, we used to go down by the river when it rained and put a stick in to see how high the water came up. So I know that was hateful. To have it all year round, I sort of can feel your pain, but I don't know. We have to just keep moving forward, and let's hear what they have to say Wednesday. If necessary, we'll regroup again, and then the Board of Trustees are verbally at least committed to this parallel effort. And I really think we have to just keep pushing on that we've got to get the communities upstate, upriver, not upstate, upriver. We've got to get all of the ways we can possibly to stop this water, whatever we have to do.
They live up there.
No, not them, us. We got to push their buttons, the politicians' buttons, and the county and the state. Yeah, so thank you.
That's fine. We take all their water, have these streams able to flush them down. It's one bridge after another. That $88 million is going to be enough for one bridge to widen, and then the other guys are stuck, and then on and on. I'm a structural engineer. Everybody's somebody here. Everybody knows something. So when you have all this knowledge, it's impossible. 8 feet, 9 feet of water on the street overnight.
All right, so let's do this. Let's wait till Wednesday. Let's hear what they have to do. Dan, I'd like to set up a follow-up meeting after the core meeting. So once we hear what they say, we can disseminate it and see what's going on, okay?
Excuse me, we do have a flood committee meeting the week after the core meeting.
Right, so join that if you-
Tune into it by all means.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if you didn't hear me, there is a flood committee meeting the week after the core meeting. I think it's the 24th.
Hang on.
It's the fourth Tuesday of the month. It's our standard meeting. Our committee meets the fourth Tuesday of every month. And please join us.
It's the
Whatever
24th.
we learn, we disseminate.
All right, who's next on the?
Like Daniel said, my name is Carolina Yan. I live in the flats. I live on 726 White Plains Road. I always lived my whole life in Mamaroneck. My address before that was 806 Mamaroneck Avenue, next to where Jimmy's used to be, the house in the corner. Like Daniel said, I'm scared. When it rained this weekend, I lost my car this time. Like he said, I'm very scared. I moved my car. I parked it up here, up the hill, like going towards Scarsdale, just because I don't want to lose my car again. I get very scared. My daughter, who's 13, she gets scared knowing that the rain, we lost our car. You have to do something, because not only it had affected my family, it had affected 3 times my family. Where I remember in 2004, came back from work. I worked on Center Street in a daycare. I had my 4-year-old with me. I couldn't go home because I lived at 806 Mamaroneck Avenue. There's 2 ways to go home. No way to go walk into my house because it got flooded on New Street and Madison. I couldn't go home. I had nowhere to go. I had to go to my ex-sister-in-law's house, stay there until the water rise down later in the nighttime, because I couldn't go home. I couldn't put my daughter in the water with me. What do I do? This flooding in Mamaroneck has been constant. And I know this time I live in an apartment, 2nd floor. I lost my car, but many people here have houses, apartments that rent 1st floor. They couldn't go back. I know a lot of families in Mamaroneck, they couldn't have their kids back in the community, back to their houses. They lost everything.
And there's still a lot of people who have not been able to move back. We're very much aware of that.
And my concern right now too, and I even wrote it down because I'm writing this down. I know I heard from a meeting from Hispanic Resource Center. I don't know what's going to happen with those bridges on Central Avenue where people walk across the street, and I use the other bridge on Waverly to go to work every morning, to bring my daughter. I hope they don't close those bridges.
All right, so thank you, Carolina. Let's see what the Army Corps says Wednesday, and then we're going to regroup and see what happens, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, 18th is the Army Corps meeting at the MLN, 7 p.m. Hang on. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Daniela Camarda. I live at 904 Ralph Avenue. And this is our third big flood. The first time my daughter was 3 months old, and I had to put my daughter on a Kubota that my husband had in order to get her out to safety. Lost everything that we just started our family. And now I suffered a stroke 4 years ago, and then this happens. It's a struggle. And I had to, when we suffered, we had to take my kids, my dog, my cat, my mother-in-law, who almost lost her life because she lives with us, because her apartment caved in, okay? I'm sick of this shit, because I can't, every day I have to friggin' figure out, how do I get from this point to that point, trying to walk? I can't live like this anymore because, I'm going to lose my mind. Mentally, I have lost my mind with all this going on. And we're being forced out of our community. My husband and I were born and raised here. His mother lived here all her life. We don't want to leave our community. We got to do something about this.
All right, thank you. So let's just keep on this path, okay? Let's see what the Army Corps says Wednesday, and we'll regroup. All right, hang on. Stephen, Norm, you're up. Oh, forgot you. Then you're next.
And
then
Norm
you.
Rosenblum, I think it's very important for everyone here to realize that it's like the old adage, there's 8,000 people, there's 10,000 stories. I think it's extremely important to realize, and Peggy touched on it, and so does this gentleman over here, there are several different aspects of what's going on. I think the first preposition that we have to recognize is that there are 3 stages from the original Army Corps of Engineers, which, believe it or not, it's already 10 years old, started in 2012. Peggy can attest to it. One of the things that she actually did, forgive me if it's not private, she actually raised her house and did it to all the parameters based on the Army Corps of Engineers study. And there were several options. I think it was 1Z that they ended up doing, and that's what they're going ahead. Stage 1 was picking which option they were going to do. The second stage and the third stage. The second stage is to do what they're doing now, which is to do the design and the planning, and then obviously after that they send it out to bid. But the pertinent point is, Peggy touched on it. That option was based on 2007 flood. I mean, it's very nice to say a 100-year flood. If it's a 100-year flood, I must be 10,000 years old, because it's a ridiculous measurement.
2007 was a 250-year flood, so Ida was a 500-year flood.
Right. So, and the other aspect is understanding government. It took decades, not just this past thing, to get the Army Corps and getting past the politics that everybody talked about to finally get the funds to do something in the village of Mamaroneck. And that's done. You have to be careful, and that's not to say don't open your mouth, and that's what you want to do, because if people didn't raise concerns, we wouldn't have that meeting on the 18th coming up, because that's what it is. There was enough pressure. The Army Corps of Engineers is a government agency. They're going to do what they think based on engineering. They have to be told the difference, what happened with Ida. There hasn't been anything close to the village of Mamaroneck when you had 14 feet of water. It's unbelievable. And that brings me to the second point of this gentleman here. Between 10 and 10:15, and I can't do it, but I think Jim and Laura can do it, like the Bay of Fundy, it went up 1.5 foot of water. And the only way you could ever convince me of something else is you can't. But someone let water down somewhere from up county. And it's the only way that you do a 1.5 foot of water. And that brings me to the other point.
Norm, let me just respond to that point. I haven't done it yet, but after Jimmy and Laura told me that, I'm going to call the village manager in, I think it's Larchmont, because to see if did they let water out?
It's not Larchmont. It had to be up county. Scarsdale, Harrison, White Plains by the county airport. You don't know what it is. And that brings me a very important point to the other one. And this has been done, and it's got to be done by the village officials and the administration. There is case precedent studies and legal cases. The village of Mamaroneck has the legal liability and a responsibility to sue Harrison, Scarsdale, White Plains, and there's precedent cases where it's done. At a minimum, any construction above us must be 100% retention of the existing water, which is really minimal. Peggy can attest to the fact when Harrison does something, we had to yell and scream to become an interested party. You have to take action. That's what it is.
We request to be an interested party, they follow up for 6 months and they...
Absolutely correct. So there may be legal action, but the important part is to, on the 18th meeting, go to this meeting. Actually, I believe you have to have a reservation now, unfortunately, so you can zoom in and look at it. But you have to impress upon the Army Corps of Engineers, thank you very much, you're doing a great job, but please be aware in your design and planning, this is what happened between 2007 or whatever date it is, and because of Ida, 14 feet. They may not be aware of it. They may not be aware of on the Sheldrake River where you have cars and storage ins. Been there 5, 6 times they were flooded. That's flooding in. The walls are falling down. It's just a matter of impressing upon the Army Corps, the same way they decided to have this public meeting, just to listen. It's the old adage I can give to is when you pave a road. You take Mamaroneck Avenue from Mamaroneck to White Plains and you blacktop it, and 2 months later, Con Ed at a telephone company digs it up. You don't want that to happen in a flood mitigation.
So for everyone here, this is the reason we're asking you. If you have questions you'd like us to pass to the Corps, please give them to us this evening. Write them down. We'll write them down for you. The more information we can pass to the Corps, the more we can hopefully help ourselves.
Yeah.
I got a quick question. Carrie Sleeper, Harbor Heights. First thing, Dan, where exactly is the dam up from Warren Avenue Park that we're always talking about?
Right behind Westchester Joint Waterworks, that yellow...
Yes, yes, so it's in between Mamaroneck Avenue and the Road to Nowhere Bridge, yeah.
Right after the water.
Fine, okay, I just wanted to understand. So, if I understand correctly, we're looking at kind of a parallel path. And if I look carefully at number 9, that means number 9 is going to be pursued on a parallel path. But we in Harbor Heights, we're not going to see this holistic approach that's really needed. And I just...
But I don't understand, why are you saying that?
Because we've only got $88 million to spend, and right in number 9, that could probably be $50 million right there.
Right, but what I said with the holistic parallel approach is that, and I think this is true, the county has funding, the state has funding, and the feds have more funding. We got to push, and I think, like we've said this a couple of times, when you come to the meetings and you make noise, people listen. So we got to keep the pressure on. And I sent new flood marks to the Army Corps, and I know, as Laura said, they're not professional. They're Tony and Laura and Jim flood marks. But I was very clear in that email, and Peggy gave me some references to 2007 versus 2012. 2021, right, 2021. So I'm trying to give them the sense that it was much worse. Thank you. All right, so let's do, hang on. You're going to do this, you lady, and then gray shirt, and then you, John. What was your name?
My name is Franca.
Franca.
Oh, sit here. My name is Franca. I don't live in the house because I know Mamaroneck very well. I'm here from 1974 and always flooding everywhere. But a few times I live in a condominium in the corner of Mont Pleasant and Stanley Avenue. A matter of fact, next door to us was the water was running like crazy. All the garage, all the car from us and from next door was completely destroyed. Alors, one thing is bothering me a lot. What the FEMA has to do with the flood. They don't know nothing what's going on with the flood in Mamaroneck.
Wait, say that again? What was your question?
FEMA, I'm sorry with my accent. FEMA, because I asked the village, I said, who's involved with this flood? Frank, it's not us, it's FEMA. Because I want to know why. Over there, it's flood zone, and we don't. And the same street like you in Washington Street, one person has a flood zone, across the street not. Who's involved in here with the...
FEMA flood maps?
Yes.
And FEMA designs those maps.
Oh, yeah, but they better come back to fix
They might
this.
not be accurate, but
They
they'll
better
be
fix those maps.
So,
in Mamaroneck, it's a disaster.
so Franca?
Yeah, Franca.
So Franca, FEMA...
I'm born in Italy, raised in France. Alors, I have Italian name with a French accent. International.
Bon appetit, bon oui, that's all I know. So FEMA basically does, as Peggy said, they do what they call these flood risk maps, right? And they redo them fairly regularly, but by regularly is every 10 years.
Yeah.
But that's how the federal government works. But they do the maps, and you're right. You guys probably got very little water up until Ida, and then you got a huge amount of water. Because I know your project manager, your property manager is Larry, right?
Oh, no more. We have somebody else.
Oh, okay. Anyway, Larry.
Yeah?
So anyway, he emailed me about some stuff. So at any rate, so FEMA does the flood maps, they do the insurance, and then they come and pay the claims. The Army Corps is doing the design to control the water, and then hopefully they'll build it, or get a contractor to build it. So that's kind of the difference.
Another thing, I'm not an engineer person, but sometimes human being, we have to use a common sense. I know you have engineer this, engineer that, and we do better job than them. Chief engineer, because we have all those rivers in Mamaroneck. Why they don't take care of those rivers? They're disgusting. Maybe I was me, we put a wall like that, the walls don't flood a lot the side. They have to do something with those rivers. So many little rivers. And maybe if you go check, sometimes it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Or maybe they should enlarge those rivers. They should do something. I don't know.
All right, so just on that subject, the village is going through cleaning the rivers now. We, as the flood committee, have been trying to get a regular maintenance program. And the village was pretty better at it, say, 8 years, 10 years ago. I haven't been in this flood committee for a while. So we're going to try to get them on that. And then the other thing we want to try to do on this parallel efforts is to get the rivers so that we can enjoy them, walk along them, maybe even fish in them. So we all got to work together.
Maybe it's not a way they can't enlarge those, do something, or deep, do something.
Yeah, that's what the Army Corps is doing, yeah.
That's a massively expensive project.
I can answer that.
Let me just go. So either come Wednesday or listen Wednesday, and then we'll have a follow-up
Over
meeting.
here?
No, the Emmeline Theater in
over there.
Wednesday,
Okay.
okay? All right, so we're doing gray shirt. What was your name? Liam?
So, I'm hearing a lot of trauma from Ida, and one of my concerns is, I think as Norm said, the Army Corps of Engineers, it's engineering, right? And I think it's based on a 1 in 100-year flood. Now, whether that's accurate or not. So you have to understand, Ida was maybe 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000. So I guess the question I have is, this may not solve the next Ida. Does the sort of basic premise of what we're trying to solve for need to be increased?
That's an excellent question, and the answer is, it depends on your viewpoint. The Army Corps of Engineers in their study says they're going to reduce the flooding by 2 to 4 feet, depending on where you are. It basically means that we're going to continue to have flooding under their plan. The approach that we are trying to take is to get the Corps to tweak the plan to make it better, within whatever the bounds are that can be done. I do know that the general in charge of this region and the colonel have walked the area. They have seen the devastation right afterwards. They are in a position to try and help move it forward in a more meaningful manner. But I think they need, on Wednesday night of next week, they need to hear directly from you about this so that they can act a little bit faster and a little bit harder.
It's one small point, but one of the things that the Corps was planning on doing in the initial project that they had studied was lowering the profile of the river, which means the riverbed, from the Halstead Avenue Bridge past the Ward Avenue Bridge going south. And they were going to lower the profile 4 feet, which meant a lot more space for water. We asked from our committee, what if we went 8 feet deeper? What would be the proper amount of water so that we wouldn't have to keep looking at this? So that is a question we've already asked them. How deep can we channelize these rivers to make more of an impact? See if we get an answer.
We're not that high above sea level, you know. You can only go down so far, but no, that's not enough.
All right, so I'm going to just say one other thing on that. And one of our other comments was similar to this, but the Army Corps designed this for a 100-year flood. The real question now is, what's the 100-year flood, right? As my wife says to me, 2007, 2009, 2011, that was only 10 years ago, right? So how is this a 100-year flood? Now, I think Ida was the 100-year flood, and 2007 was the 25-year flood, but that's Tony Gilbert, and I'm not an engineer or a professional. I should have worn my dungarees. But anyway, so we have to solve this out. But on the parallel efforts, we're really going to try to do everything we can to get this flooding down. We're just going to stick to this. So it's going to be John and then Jimmy. Oh, John, you, and then Jimmy. John.
You keep dumping everything on the Army Corps of Engineers. What about the people our taxes keep in office while we're living here and paying these taxes? I walked the river when the flood was in progress. I saw one bridge, a major bridge on Hillside Avenue, 2 sheds, 10 by 12, and a 14-foot boat jammed under it. Where's that water going to go? In my basement. And then it gets even better. I walked up the hill and walked down, and I see a sea train jammed under the bridge in Columbus Park. What is a sea train doing next to the damn river?
Okay.
Why don't the village, our people that we hired, make them tie them down before they float away, not after?
All right, so that has become front and center, and the village officials have been aware of this now, and they've been walking the flats, and I know they walked the flats with some of the Washingtonville people. So I think we just kind of, they said at one point GM was asleep at the wheel. So I don't know, but Stephen, our flood member, brought this up at one of our meetings, and then he went and took pictures. And so we're on this, and we're going to start to look at the regulations to make sure again, we can't do everything at once, but you're 100% right. We could have the biggest, best system in the world. If a freaking washing machine or a car or a C-train trailer gets under there, it's useless. Yeah, I know. Okay. Andrew?
Good evening. I'm one of the members of Flood Mitigation, and your point, sir, your point was exactly what I was going to comment on, the fact that the Army Corps project, as great as it can be, and hopefully it will only get better, it also comes down to us, the village. What are we going to do to take care of each other? whether that's part of our DPW working collectively with the vac truck that we now have. We finally acquired that in the last year. We were contracting this out. Now we have our own. We have individuals here in the village that have direct knowledge of where the focal points need to be in advance of a storm. So it's not afterwards. It's 72 hours, 48 hours, 24. There's a system that we can apply to work parallel. We call it, and I'm sure you've heard if you attend these meetings, low-hanging fruits, things that we can do today, not a year from now, not 2 weeks, but today. So your point is exactly, we need to work, everyone in this room, collectively. So I'm just,
6 inches, a lot of these people wouldn't even be here.
pardon in here.
We could lower the water, flood water,
And,
6 inches.
and here's the interesting thing about it, and I know when Norm was in Washington back in 2017 with us, many of us up here were down there, they said, look, you're not going to eliminate the flooding. It'll make a difference between catastrophic and nuisance. Now, you have nuisance flooding. What can we do, our elected officials, what can we do to assist? That is going to make the difference. And like Steve took the initiative to going around taking photographs of things that will get wedged in underneath some of these. So, good point, and it is a parallel effort. So.
And there's another parallel effort too. I'm on this flood committee because 2007 I had 4 feet of water in my basement. I'm at the bottom of a hill, basically in Florence Park. You know. Yeah. So my family, we had no electricity. We had to go to a hotel. My daughter had her first grand mal seizure because of this. She went to the hospital, and my wife said, we can't do this anymore. So what we did was, I took a guess. I had 4 pumps pumping a half horsepower pumps in my basement. The best I could do was 4 feet. I said, I'm going to put 8 pumps down there. I'm going to in French drains. And did I have the money to do that? I borrowed money to do that from a home equity loan.
Oh my God.
And then I travel a lot now with work. So I said, you know what? I can't have my wife, doing the generator thing with small kids and older girls. So I got backup natural gas later. I didn't go to Disney for several years. We paid it back. We haven't had a flood. Some of this, unfortunately, Army Corps, all these plans that the village is trying to do, are not going to solve it for everybody.
Yeah, but
So-
anytime they go, those people, they will help us, those cops?
Yeah. So to a certain extent, unfortunately, it's on the individual homeowner. And if you don't want, and it's not going to work for everybody. If you're in Washingtonville and getting 10 feet, ain't going to work. Maybe somebody here has a situation like me.
All right, so Stephen, let me interrupt. So another thing that Stephen came up with an idea, and we talked a little bit about it at our last meeting, and we're going to probably try to put it together as a recommendation or a request from the board to consider a program. They have this in some of the upstate counties where you can get help flood-proofing your home, right? So we just started that thought because he brought it up. It's not perfect, but there's things you can do. So keep tuned. We got to finish. Fran, you're next. What's your name?
My name is Deborah. Hi, my name is Deborah Quintana. And I just have 3 quick points. I think my opinion is we needed to dismiss this talk about 100-year flood, 200-year flood. That just doesn't, we need to stop talking about that. It is a yearly phenomena. We are coming on, we're 3.5 months away from celebrating, or commemorating would be the better word, the year of, anniversary of this. I think that we need to figure out, we can't wait on the Army Corps of Engineers. I think we need to begin to create step-by-step plans for now. And it would be nice to have that by the year anniversary. Second, I was a bit appalled, not by you, but your statement that maybe, 8 years ago, the village did a better job. You kind of said that in passing of taking care of things. I find that appalling. 8 years ago, they were doing a better job. What's been going on in those years? I'm sure you think the same.
So maybe I misspoke, and as a volunteer, so I'm probably going to get the emails up to Kazoo tonight.
Yeah.
But I have heard that there was more kind of procedures in place as to a regularity of maintenance.
Well-
And that's what I've heard. I haven't seen it myself, but that's what I've been told.
And I think I think this room would be as appalled as I am to hear that the village sort of slacked off, and wasn't keeping up the maintenance, and then had this big wake-up call. Which takes me to my third and final point, which is I think by now, or within the next month, instead of continuing to have meeting upon meeting, waiting for the feedback, let's see what they think about the feedback, we're going to be another 10 years. And I do feel that as professionals, even on the village level, not just Army Corps of Engineers, that we should already have a timeline and a chart that shows us the exact steps. This is this, you'll get your info then, this is what we're expecting as a village. Not just we'll sit and wait what the Army Corps has to say. Whether they come back to us or not, this is what we're doing on this date. This is well, a local action plan, and I think for all of us to be able to envision instead of all these words, for a person that's more visual like me, I think having us, here's our step-by-step plan. And our target is, so we have target, we need the road signs. We need to know that by October 1, it will go out to bid, or maybe not. And then we could say, hey, you were supposed to have that out to bid. And I don't mean, I just think collectively as a community, we have to, I think if you've been looking at this, I've only lived here 3.5 years, but I think after 10 plus years, you should already have a chart and know what your next step is, regardless what the Army Corps says. Maybe they go, we're putting it on the back burner. Okay, what's next?
Okay.
Not another meeting for more information and feedback, because you know how we feel.
Okay, so our role as a flood committee is advisory. So what I'm hearing you loud and clear is that we want a plan, right? And I have been saying for 6 months now, we want a holistic watershed approach plan.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
we're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. And we will, if our committee agrees, we will send to the trustees that we want a plan developed ASAP, okay? Okay. All right, we're going to go, let's see, who is Jimmy, and then yellow shirt, and then, all right, so, all right, Jimmy, go.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Abadi, 170 Washington Street. First, I want to be positive. We definitely need to move forward. And my thing is, the frustration in here is we've been doing this since the 70s. And Johnny, and when you speak, I know. This is ongoing from the 70s. Nothing's been done. And, in all due respect to everyone that's on the board and everybody that's on all the boards, my wife and I and a few of our neighbors had to go out of our way to get everybody to come down and take a look at what's going on. And that should have never been. We shouldn't have to ask for anything. We pay our taxes. We all work. We all lived in this community our whole life. And we had to point out the brooks are filthy. Everything, the walls are falling down. We know about the flood. And we also know that the Army Corps engineer is not going to solve all the flooding. So let's just put that to rest, okay? Because that's just what it is. We are going to flood. The bottom line is, we've been doing this, I don't know how long, these meetings, on and on and on and on. And I know it's a positive thing, but at the same time, it's like I'm tired of hearing myself. I really am. I'm tired of all the bull, It's just, they're going to come in, they're going to do what they're going to do. We know that Harrison, Scarsdale, White Plains needs to be in on this, but that's not going to happen either. And the only way that might happen is if our board, our trustees, our mayor really push and go after the other villages and at least try to get them to get on board. So far, I hear nothing. Oh, they weren't on board. Who went after them? Who asked them to get on board? This is not going to stop. The flooding, listen, I'm 62 years old, I've been getting flooded since I was a teenager. Okay, so the bottom line is, I went from Elliott Avenue to Washington Street, the Flats is gonna flood. The Harbor Heights is flooding. We need to go after the other municipalities and ask them to be on board. At least go after them and say, hey, listen, we got a major problem. Harrison's flooded. They flooded out. Why wouldn't they be on board? So, you know, we can sit here and just keep going on and on and on, but nobody's pushing the issue.
All right, so
at
Jimmy, I'm pushing, okay?
No, but Tony, I appreciate what you do, but the point is, we're going over the same things over and over again. We need our mayor to get up and get on board also. And we shouldn't even have to be asking these questions.
Okay, but hang on, let me just say, I'm pushing, our FMAC has been pushing. You guys getting on our calls, it's starting to work. Catherine Parker's been coming to the meetings. She got the first meeting of Liswick in like 10 years. So I agree. Liswick is the Long Island Sound watershed intermunicipal officials.
Here, I just want to say what the frustration is, and this is no disrespect to anyone. If my wife, myself, my neighbors, didn't get up and call everybody to come down to see what was going on, we wouldn't even be in this room right now. And I'm not trying to take any credit for anything because it doesn't mean anything. The point is, why do we have to do this? Our village is supposed to say, holy Christ, the floods are getting worse. Let's do something. We shouldn't have to be here doing this. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to, and again, thank you for getting on the meetings. Kate's next. That's all I can think of at the moment.
Okay, so a gentleman was talking about how Mamaroneck is being treated like a toilet by upstream communities. And, you know, there's only so much deeper you can make that river, so much wider you can make that river. There's a limit to the flow it can take. All this focuses on the Army Corps project and Mamaroneck. And, you know, you're talking about the bigger issues, the other communities, you know, Harrison, White Plains, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't heard anybody talk about the thruway. Now, that's a big one that for the politicians to go after. But the thruway was built in the 1950s. It runs right next to the rivers. It is three lanes in each direction, plus, you know.
500,000 gallons a minute or something.
Yeah, I mean, I did a little back of the envelope. It was like during Ida, 5 million gallons rolled off. Now, when that was built, there were no mitigations required. That things go right down and right into the river, okay? If you build it now, you have to mitigate it, okay? You can't do that. You have to create retention basins and so forth. You know, it's right there. It is a huge contributor to Mamaroneck flooding. So, but, you know, everybody's like, oh, the Thruway Authority, they're God. We need to go after the Thruway Authority to get some of their millions of dollars to mitigate the amount of water that they're putting into Mamaroneck, right into our rivers. That's going to help take some of the pressure off of us, because if the Army Corps project is only going to lower the water by 2 to 4 feet, and we've got 14 feet, we got to find some more low-hanging fruit, and that is one. It's a tough one, but the politicians need to man up, and they need to go after the Thruway Authority, sue them for what's happened, and get them to pay to mitigate the impervious surface runoff that's coming into Mamaroneck. Thank you.
Kate, I agree with that 100%. And they also have that huge pile of dirt, which, let's get rid of the dirt. Okay.
But that is the truth. The flats had water coming from 3 different directions. Yeah. The highway, the Mason, the transfer center. It came from, we had no way out.
No way out, yeah. No way out, that's a good phrase.
Would it come from the train?
All right,
Would it come from the train also?
hang on, you gotta go. So, all right. The redheaded, sort of redheaded, what's your name? What is it? Do we have a microphone for Lynn?
Hi, my husband and I are new to the community. We had 4 feet on our first floor in the Heights. We're one of those stupid young couples who moved in 6 months before the flood. Present. I loved your idea, I forget your name, but I loved your idea of setting an action plan. And you mentioned everyone in the room is someone. I work in marketing, and the best thing about marketing is communication, because it keeps people accountable, but also keeps people involved. Everyone is in this room probably because they've been affected by inches, feet of water. Everyone else's memory is pretty short. It's a 100-year flood. We're not using that term anymore, but it's a 100-year flood, and it's on to the next until there's the next flood to think about. So if we come up with an action plan, I'm happy to help with the communication. It keeps people involved. It keeps people optimistic that something's actually happening, even if it's small steps. So I think that that's a great suggestion, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you very much. All right, over here, what was your name? I forget, I'm sorry. Oh, Bernie, sorry, Bernie. And then,
Bernie
in
Camarda,
the back, all right? Bernie.
The Bernie. The one that yells at the meetings all the time, sorry. I'm going to keep on saying it, and I'm going to tell everyone this. The dam and the reservoir is our culprit. Until we fix that, this gentleman over here brought up the question about, is this plan going to work? The short answer is no. Because the Army Corps did not study the reservoir, nor did they study the whole watershed, which is 26 square miles. They did not do it. The county has to be on board of this. The thruway, yes, but the county. Mr. Young, you're a trustee. Mr. Natchez, you're a trustee. You have to talk to the county.
I talked to Latimer.
Okay. He has to go to this meeting next week because I'm calling Channel 12. Channel 12 is going to be there. Okay? He has to be there. They just did a project. The county just did a project, or they're doing a project at Playland. Okay? Which the county doesn't even want. They don't want this playland. It's costing $130 million for this project to restore playland, which they don't want. So Mr. Latimer wants to help. He can help.
What?
But he can't sit on his hands, and he can't do that. Now, let me just tell everyone, all these people up here are trying to help. They are trying to help. And we're just showing our frustration, so don't take it, have some thick skin.
You're not serious?
Every once in a while. But they're trying to help. John, they are. I know John for a long time. They're trying to help. But this dam needs to be raised. It never worked. Look, I went over this Army Corps of Engineers plan over and over. This dam never worked since they built it. It never worked. They tried to cut a hole in the 70s when I was a kid, and the Army Corps came in and they thought it was going to work. It never worked because it doesn't. The reason it doesn't work is it has to retain something. So the 26 miles of river that comes, square feet of all, just go around and look at all the storm drains and go to the neighborhoods in White Plains. It all leads to the river. Everything. So this water has to get retained. Now the water coming up so fast, I believe it was from the container going in the tube underneath the railroad. That's why it came up so fast. But that's here nor there. My problem with the Army Corps plan is they're going to put another tube to straighten it out. What happens if somebody's shed goes in there, somebody's boat goes in there? So they have to have an alternative plan, or they have to realize that this dam is the problem. It's the number one problem, along with the Columbus Park, with the 3 rivers. There's 3 rivers that go into Columbus Park. It's Mamaroneck, Sheldrake, and the Ralph Avenue. And the biggest river is Mamaroneck, and they can't control it. Okay? I fly fish, and I go on all these sites, and I see all these rivers, and I go to rivers all over New York State, and I see all these, with all the CFSs and with all this, and the way they control these rivers is a dam. The dam is the culprit. That's it. I mean, and you guys as leaders are our voice. You have to put the pressure on the county. It's enough is enough. I'm sick of looking at the reservoir, and it's not a reservoir, it's a river. It's not a river. And someone on Facebook said, I said, it would hold millions of more gallons. And they were like, what do you think? We're going to have to put the Hoover Dam? There's 4,900 cubic square feet in 1 million gallons of water. That means 49 scoops of a backhoe. You don't think that you could put out 4,900? I think you could pull out 49,000 scoops to go down and dredge that. And here's the other problem that I have with the Army Corps. They looked at the dam and they said it was cost effective. And they said, it's cost effective. It's not cost effective for Mamaroneck. How much did the flood cost? How much did the flood cost? It cost billions of dollars. And it was probably half of that was in Mamaroneck. It was $1 billion in all of Westchester. So they know it's a problem. They know the dam is a problem. And they want to do it. But here's what I don't want to happen. We get the dam, and then all of a sudden they say, all right, well let's try to repair it. Let's try to dig it out. That's not going to happen. The dam has to be twice the height, okay? The house on Saxon Drive has to be bought out because the poor guy will get flooded if the water comes up high. And the dam and the reservoir has to be dredged. And the other thing is, before I forget, which I found out this last week, which really enraged me, was the Post Road Bridge. And I brought it up at the BOT meeting, and I don't know who's doing it, DOT, but they're repairing the bridge on the Post Road, and they're making the bridge smaller where the water goes. With the most important part of the river is where the tide comes up, and if there's a hurricane, you know, there's tide surges. So they're doing something there to make the opening smaller, which is ludicrous to me. So that needs to be addressed ASAP before they start pouring cement. I mean, because that's just crazy. And how that slipped, listen, I know some guy, everybody's here, Norm, I know he was the mayor, and then Tom's the mayor, and then stuff slips away. But that has to be addressed. And you guys are our voices. And I told Andy, listen, I don't want to talk because I'm very rough around the edges when they talk to me. So I want you guys to be our voice. It's going to be chaotic at the Emlet if everyone's going to do this. You got to be there, and it's got to be a concentration. It's got to be a laser beam, and they have to be put on the pressure. Why didn't they do this study on the reservoir? Why do they think it's not cost effective? They have to be held accountable, and the county has to be held accountable.
What they're going to say is,
no, I know. I know, but you have to be. We have the list. I know you have to have the list, and that's what I'm going to sit down and I'm going to. Yes. Yes. No, I know they are here to help us, but they're trying to do things where well, I don't like this cost-effective thing. I hate that word.
You don't know yet what they're proposing.
All right, so
No, I know. Yes,
Bernie,
you're
thank you.
absolutely right.
What are you're concerned about the dam? I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding.
No,
Okay,
the damn
we
dam.
got it, we got it. Okay, John, and then black shirt.
You remember my father?
Yes, he used to cut my hair.
He lived in this town for 90 years. He died 13 years ago. We talked to great length about this flood. He told me back in the 1930s, somebody had the bright idea, let's dredge the reservoir and make it a surge basin. Well, you know what? It was a bright idea. We didn't get flooded for over 30 years.
Did they
What Bernie
take it
said
out?
is right on the mark.
Did they,
Have boats on it.
Yes.
No, not the reservoir up by the.
Your
Yes.
father was the first to say, to talk about the dam and the reservoir. your father, at
Yes.
the meetings, at the original meetings in the.
Yep. The res,
He knew.
I thought they were going to dredge it. They landscaped it. It's beautiful. I drive by and go, I'll think of that while I'm getting flooded.
But they're right, that reservoir was full, you could ice skate.
Yeah. Okay, noted, okay. All right. All right.
So,
What was your name?
oh, my name is Orain Barrett. Live on Winfield Avenue. We're all here from Winfield Avenue, Lisa section here. And I can't say but to say thank you for speaking up on the dam and the reservoir. We always see when the water starts to hit the bridge, that footbridge that heads right into Harrison, and the water just starts to go right over and then come right into our home. Right now, you can see 3 homes are abandoned, including ours, my neighbors here as well, because you're talking almost 12 feet of water just took over the entire street and such, right? So we see the effects of that dam, that reservoir, and I don't know how they manage it. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know what it's collecting. I have no information. So if this Army Corps report, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to see what they have to recommend. But to this gentleman here, I don't know your name that just spoke up. I want to say thank you for bringing that, because I would think an assumption that that would be the first solution, right, to really control it and try and capture as much as possible that's coming from White Plains and these other communities that you guys say are basically letting out the water.
Well, thank you, and I think that, I think the village is, let's put it this way, we're pushing to say, even if the Army Corps doesn't want to do that as part of their project, we've started using a parallel multi-paths that we have to fix that. So, yeah, that's got to be on our list, and that's going to be on your to-do list there, your action plan.
And that's my wife, so that's what I listen to when I get home.
That's your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, God almighty.
I mean, I want to plan.
All right, hang on. Oh, all right, so we're going to do, what was your name?
Roxanne.
Oh, you sent the email?
Yes, I did.
All right, Roxanne, you're up.
Hi, my name is Roxanne. I live in Harbor Heights also. I'm actually Peggy's neighbor. I think a lot of our frustration, with all due respect to everyone, is we didn't see any of our, I know we didn't in Harbor Heights, except for one village official, Dan, thank you. He was up in Harbor Heights within a day or two after the flood. No one else from the village was up there. I know and I don't mean within a day or two, but even, we were all outside for weeks of our homes. We were out of our homes for months. Some of you aren't in your homes, just got back into your homes. The other thing that's been frustrating is, this is the first meeting we're having in person, and this is why everyone, I guess I wasn't there. Okay, so that's what all right, so that's what I mean. I don't know if any of you were at that one 2 weeks ago. I wasn't. I didn't know. And I live next door to Peggy. So I should have known. No. But if it was that quick. Everyone's frustrated because this really is, all right, a second meeting. I'll give you the second meeting. But everyone is frustrated. And I'm sure many of you, like myself, we not only flooded on 9/1, we flooded the week and a half before. So we hadn't even finished cleaning up from flood 1. We're still cleaning up from flood 1 when flood 2 hit.
There was 100 years between.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, just so you know, as Tony said, Peggy raised her home to the level of my house, where, okay? She got hit in the living quarters. I'm a house removed from her, from the brook, and I got it in my first floor. How much higher am I supposed to go? So, Bernie's point to dredging the reservoir, I know I'm not a hydrologist, and I say this all the time. They all say, you want to get the water out quicker, just get the water out quicker. Well, you can't get the water out quicker if you've got this big basin that it's going into these narrow channels. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm just using common sense. I don't have the degrees, and I'm not an engineer. Where is it going to go? Dredging's been a dirty word. But I hear now, we may be working with the county, maybe we're gonna do some.
I'm telling you, we're dredging because 2 days ago, we approved $1.36 million to be spent this year on dredging. And it wasn't easy to get done, believe me. Not everybody wanted to do it.
Well, because it's been a dirty word, environmentally to remove it.
Because everybody's tight with the ball.
Well, they're tight with their money, but I look at, as somebody else said here, all those little plastic sticks that are in the reservoir, those were trees that were planted, and that was to protect the trees so that they didn't die. Nobody's ever gone in and taken out all of the plastic that the trees have died and all the dead trees that are in the water. It just makes...
They're spending $135 million on playland. They don't even want it.
Okay, so I got a little conundrum here. So it's going to be yellow shirt, I forgot your name way in the back, and then my friend, okay? So you got to be quick because...
You know, we've talked about huge plans, Army Corps of Engineers. The truth also is, there's got to be some small things that the village can do, not the least of which, Peggy, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, the block behind Peggy, they just built a brand-new house 4 feet from the river. Who the hell approved that? Okay? Great. Tax revenue. Great.
We wrote a letter, some of the neighbors and I, to the building department saying this is a bad idea for all of these reasons. Have you done a HECRAS study? Have you done, and we were told it's not going to be a problem.
Okay. I mean, someone's got to have
Okay,
an overarching plan here, for God's sake.
All right, so we're pushing on the village to try to tighten up the regulations, review the regulations. It's going to be on our list. Okay.
Yeah, actually, and for another thing, the FMAC now has advisory power on new buildings within flood zones. So it's something that is very new. So hopefully, a house like that, we'll at least put up an objection, and maybe the building department will listen.
Right, so, and I appreciate that was...
Why isn't the building department thinking about this already? Hey, there's a river there. We can't put a house there.
The building department, when they came up the day after the flood, and I said, I believe that the reason I got water in my first floor of my home is because of that home that was built there. The water hit it and came back to Peggy and I. I'm not saying I wasn't going to flood. Of course I was going to flood, but not in the first floor of my home. And the building department said to me, no. And I said, well, the Army Corps was up here and said that that house should not have been built with a foundation. It should have been built on pylons with breakaway walls so that that water flowed through and didn't bounce back. And the building department walked away from me.
Okay, in the back, please, Stephen.
I'm Sue Duchensky, and I live on Stony Brook Avenue.
Could we have one meeting, please?
I want to address what this member of Stephen said before about homeowners taking responsibility too. You know, we've been taking responsibility, and we need help. We've been building things wider and higher, and you know, we're past the point of sandbags. They don't even help. And now the stuff we built higher and wider didn't work because things keep getting worse. So we built things higher and wider again. We buy new sump pumps, we buy new generators, and we are taking responsibility for the best that we can from a homeowner's point of view and spending thousands of dollars trying to mitigate, and hopefully it doesn't happen again and it happens again. But we need help. We need help, and we've been asking it for so long from this government.
Tell me your name again.
Sue Duchensky.
Susan. So Susan.
And number two, Catherine Parker. I've been writing to her as well as my neighbors for years, and not once has she ever answered any of us. So yeah, she should have been out here a lot sooner than she's been out here. And I'll give you another example of our community. I went to Hornage Road today, and Mamaroneck High School, they had built a building 47 feet from the brook and another big science lab, and they had an area of woodland where they put construction vehicles. So instead of restoring that whole area, once the construction vehicles back to the woodland and the grass, they made a parking lot. So another huge parking lot for more cars. So And that whole area is in a flood zone as it is. Instead of working with the community and bringing it back to Woodland, they made another flippin' huge parking lot for cars.
So A, thank you. B, I don't think Stephen was trying to disrespect anybody, because his program. So, and if we can, and I will definitely bring this up with our committee, we're going to push to develop a program that will help homeowners work on their own properties. So hold us accountable to that, okay? All right. All right. Kelly, sorry. Got your
Yeah, I had my mask on, sorry. Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate something Liz said a little while ago, and something I said on the video conference in March, is I think that we need to have an email list, right? So that we can, because there's a lot of things happening here. There's government liaisons we need to work with. There's houses going up where they shouldn't be. There needs to be an email list that we can have a call to action for all these passionate voices in the community. And I know that there's email lists going up over here now, but I sent emails. I sent 3 different emails to the flood committee website, to the email listed on the flood committee website since March. I got 0 responses from.
So Kelly, that's me.
Okay, but I'm just.
But hang on.
I'm just saying.
No.
I want to reiterate that the communication from you, and I'm an interested. But listen, I'm an interested party, and I was going to attend the meeting in April on the 4th Tuesday, and all of a sudden it was on the 3rd Wednesday, and I checked the calendar, and it's somehow in between April 3rd and the meeting it switched, and I didn't know. The only way I found out is through some secondary Facebook group not secondary, I'm sorry, everybody's involved with the flood victims Facebook group, but that's how I found out that the meeting had happened already. So I think that this is an extremely important point, is that we need to have communication so that you can ask us to email our elected representatives and get them on the people upstream. You can ask us to do all these different things, and I understand you had this going on in 2017 and stuff when you guys went down to DC and you had some successful meetings but no funding. Now we've got funding, and who knows how the meetings are going to be. So hopefully that everything will converge on a positive note for us going forward. So that's basically what I want to say, is like that, I think that's the most important thing we can do coming out of here, is have an active group so we can email people, and then you can email us what is happening, what funding has been, what's going to be dredged. I know we have dredgers coming and we have things starting to happen, but the lack of information is and it's not, I'm not saying that, actually I am saying it's a lack of information, but that really, it feeds in an echo chamber, and it gets worse and worse, and people are already on edge, right?
Okay.
So we need to know all this stuff going forward.
Okay, so Kelly's right. I had a conversation with him, and then he was on our meeting, which I asked everybody to do, and then I did not follow up with him, so shame on me. One of the things I've had some pressure from the community to try to set up pages, Facebook pages, and this and that. One of the problems I have resisted that, and I'm being totally upfront here, is because anytime, like I'm probably going to get 50 emails today because they said the village wasn't maintaining stuff. Every time I try to put something out, somebody objects. And I'm a volunteer, number one, and I cannot control all this massive stuff. So if we can figure out a way to do it that's kind of seamless, and we can get information out, that would be great. But I don't know how to do it. I don't have the time to do it. My committee members, and I kind of put gags in their mouths also, because he starts to say something on Facebook, and Peggy says something on it, and then everybody responds, and it becomes a political battle. And this community right now is very politically charged, and I am not dealing with that as the chair of the FMAC. I am trying to get parallel paths, push the village to do what we think has to be done. And I am not going to be distracted by either the politics or the Facebook pages, so I will let Lou Young speak. First I'm going to let Andrew speak, and then Lou Young.
I just wanted to address your point. I don't.
There are a lot of hands going up that you not recognize. Please, give other people a chance. Thank you.
You know what, I'm gonna bring the mic back there, but while I'm walking back there, one of the things we used to do years ago, which I encourage us to do, is to have meetings we shouldn't always be reactive. We should be proactive and have meetings to share how we can make things better. We would have educational, informative meetings. We used to talk about things about in advance of storms, what we could do to collectively, so that it's not just, okay, 5 years passes by. It should be whether it's a couple months, once a year, whatever, a summit of individuals at the Village Hall so we can all share concepts. People would come in and talk about what we can do at homes and home improvements and things like that. So I think it's a very good point. Thank you.
Great point, thank you.
Hi there, I'm Laura Sutter, and I've lived in the Village of Mamaroneck my whole life, 50 years. Harbor Heights, 10 years, and 40 years I bought the house I grew up in from my parents 5 years ago. My problem is, I believe, from the reservoir. In my backyard on my property, I have an open spillway owned by the Village of Mamaroneck on my property. On my plot plan, it says Village of Mamaroneck, but it's on my yard. In the 40 years I've lived there, my parents owned it, 35 and I 5, they have never come to maintain it. Look at the small culvert pipes or whatever you call them. There's 2 of them. They're probably 16 inches. They're not really big. So, Wood Street is on the other side of 95, so off of Jefferson, off of Grove. So my whole neighborhood over there too was completely underwater, but my big thing is the village, and they have been out since this because I've been on them. I had gutters coming through my backyard. DPW has come to clean it, but they had a company come with a camera, and it got clogged after 50 feet. Now that 50 feet is under my neighbor's driveway. So if it's clogged under my street, that's a huge problem. And I just wanted to bring light to that. And I think that's one of those parallel projects or those projects that, could potentially bring more damage throughout. So thank you.
So what was your name, Laura?
Laura Sutter.
And do you live?
Wood Street?
So which side of is that north of up I-95 or south?
East. So I'm off of Grove and Jefferson. I'm right by Harrison.
All right, because I need someone to help me get unprofessional flood marks in that area.
Okay.
So because I need that. I promised the Corps I would get them. And I have your area
Absolutely.
to do.
Did you flood back?
In 2017? Yes, my parents did a little bit. Was it 20? No, sorry. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, 07, yes, they did. They did.
But this was something.
This was but that flood,
Right,
and that flood did not, the water that they got did not come from the brook at that time. This is totally separate, and it's massive in my backyard. I think, Mr. Young, you were walking in the neighborhood, and I brought you into my backyard to show you. So and honestly, the village wasn't aware of it. When they came out, they said, I didn't even know this was here. Yeah. Yes, probably.
All right, who still hasn't been heard? Okay, how about brown shirt there with the sunglasses? Sunglasses? What's your name?
Over there. Hi, I'm Liza. I'm on Winfield, and we are the second house from the river. And I actually I had a couple of questions, but I also did want to touch on a few things. So my first question is, there's been a lot of talk of these flood marks, and you actually just referenced these unprofessional flood marks. Has anyone come on Winfield to determine those flood marks?
So
Because
Peggy-
I had
yes,
8
Peggy-
feet of water
yeah,
inside
Peggy
my
and
house.
Peggy was with me, I forget, it was this week, right? And I had my tape measure. I stood on the tops of every wall on every street. We measured where Peggy thought the water was, and I sent that all to the Corps with some pictures.
Okay, because like this couple here, we're obviously those dumb homeowners who purchased our home in 2016. I'm sure many people in this room have seen our home flood for 50 more years.
I think we did a fairly adequate job. I mean, Peggy knows the area very well, and we went together.
Yeah, so I think that, at least from our perspective, and I'm sure that my neighbors also share the same sentiment, we don't feel like there's enough attention brought to our street in particular. We hear there's, the talks of the dam, and yes, that's a huge problem, but we're almost like the forgotten street, and I know that there's a lot of opinion that these 3 homes don't belong there. But these 3 homes have families attached to them that have been directly impacted, are still homeless, and have lost a whole lot. So
Okay,
while they...
So let me respond to that, because this is another issue that our committee is trying to push on, and we've had so many issues, but I believe that we have to start to push on a vision for housing, right, in these floodplain areas. And I don't know what that vision is, but if you just go on the web and look at places that flood, and there are pictures on there of how people have done innovative things. I don't know what we can do in Mamaroneck, but I think the trustees and the mayor, I think somehow we have to start to look at that to say, okay, what do we do in this area? The Corps, as was mentioned before, had so many houses in that area to raise up. You said six to 8. So we don't know what they're planning this time, but hopefully we'll hear Wednesday. But in addition to that, a parallel effort, all the areas that got heavily hit, those houses have been flooded again and again. What can we do to make better housing? I don't know what the answer is, but I think that we have to look at it as a vision that Mamaroneck has and figure it out and put it on my list maker there left. Franca, was that your name? Or that was you, Franca? What was your name? Deborah. That we have to start to develop a vision of what do we do here. So I'm sorry, but go ahead.
So, no, that's really all I wanted to touch on. I hear, there's all of this focus downstream and in the village and in the flats, but know that we are there too, and we are getting impacted.
And I saw it firsthand. Believe me, Peggy, we walked down most every street in your area this week. So, and I sent pictures to the Corps with the numbers that Peggy gave me.
Liza, I'm not shy.
So, no, and I appreciate that because, our situation is very different as well. But we're also listening about this funding. So do we know at this point, how is this funding even being allocated?
We have no idea. Wednesday, I have asked for a meeting with our committee and the Army Corps. They didn't really want to do it.
We've been asking for that meeting since the September.
Right. And so they wanted to have a public meeting. They're saying, I guess it's their this is how they work. So we originally had been told it would be 6 months from when we asked this 3rd time in January. Right. So they moved it up to May 18th. So we're hopefully we are going to hear, we may not like what we hear, but we are going to hear stuff Wednesday night. And that's why once we hear, then we have to move forward and say, okay, let's take the best parts of that, take it and do it, and then go on our parallel paths. Okay? Thank you. So the meeting is Wednesday, May 18th, the Emmeline Theater in Mamaroneck, 7 p.m. Can they go on the web and see this meeting or not?
LMC-TV is broadcasting
So,
this live.
LMC-TV. Yeah, so.
LMC will be broadcasting that meeting live on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's on the village website.
Yeah, you do have to, there are tickets, so everybody should go and get a ticket, or sign up.
All right, hang on, you two. Oh, hang on. Did you have a question over here? Mr. Black Vest? No? Yeah, okay. Robert?
Thank you, Steve. I want to thank everyone. I'm crying back here listening to some of these stories. I'm Robert Leviton, and I live on Melbourne. And we have an odd problem, and I want to... What's your name, sitting next to Peggy, the neighbor?
Oh, Roxanne.
Roxanne, Robert. The housing development on Pine Street was built in 1999, and we had another experience. So when I walk around our community, I'm overwhelmed by what I see, and I'm going to cry. But thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories. When it rains out a half an inch, we get flooding from underground. And no one here is talking about the underground water system. I'm not going to get too detailed. Steve, I have 18 pumps. You need one? Come over and see me. We lost power. Daniel, where's Con Ed in the room? Power went out at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sound asleep. My generator didn't know to go on. Where's Con Ed in this discussion? Stormwater drain management. Where am I going to pump my water? I run 250 yards of 2-inch hose from a 6-horsepower water pump down to a storm drain on the corner that's bubbling up. Can't go anywhere. So I'm hoping that the Army Corps of Engineers will address these issues as well. Thank you.
All right, so let me respond to that, because most of this discussion, and particularly Army Corps, is what we call riverine flooding, right? The water goes in the river, the water comes out of the river. Then we have tidal flooding, which we're really not talking about at all. That's going to be another whole, that's going to be somewhere down on your plan, right? Right. This decade, we're going to hit it. In fact, there was the great webinar today on it, if anybody wants to hear. But the other is groundwater and surface water, right? So Washingtonville has a lot of surface water problems. So the village has agreed to hire an engineer. Laura, I'm going to put words in your mouth, but after next Wednesday, we're going to try to hold a charrette. Maybe Trustee Young, you can help us so that we can get people's ideas. We could use this room, put boards up, see, okay, what are the ideas? So we have to address surface flows, and that's really just come up recently. This whole groundwater issue, I don't think the aquifer would affect where you are, but I know it does affect people, so we want to study the aquifer. So that, and we did request the Corps to do that. I don't know whether they will or they won't. We'll find out Wednesday, but we have to study it. My wife said to me, Tony, when you go to these meetings, which was the other meeting which you couldn't attend, excuse me, was that you need an analogy of like, how bad is the problem in Mamaroneck? So she said, let me recommend one. So my wife thinks that flooding in Mamaroneck is like the Titanic out there steaming along, and it's doing 20 knots, and we have to make it do a U-turn, right? This problem in Mamaroneck, it's like there's water every place. So the list, we got to work on parallel paths. So Robert, where are you? So we're going to try to keep at this, okay?
So I want to buy a boat. I have a boat. I love our harbor. And I had an engineer come over to talk to me about my groundwater. He said, Robert, you don't have to buy a boat. You own a boat.
There you go. He saved you money. Okay. Anybody who hasn't spoken? Oh, yeah, purple shirt. It looks purple, although my wife tells me I'm colorblind. That's when I dress.
Hi, everyone.
What was your name?
My name is Luis Zarate.
Luis?
I'm here on behalf of the Community Resource Center. We were hit hard as well. Our building was, the whole lower section was completely flooded. But that's not only that. All our neighbors, all of our community residents, they were really affected. We're still, thanks to that, we got a lot of support from the community members, everyone that just came across, and they did great. And we're still helping a few of the folks that, lower income, and anybody who needed the help, we were there. But I just have one question in regards to, after we hear the Corps of Engineers on the 18th, I'm sorry, what happens after that? Because we're here, we had a meeting with, in Spanish for some members of our community, so we could help them understand what this is all about. And I guess this is for them as well. We're going to have a watch party separately. We'll have probably some members of the community that can, communicate and understand fully in person. But what happens after that? We listen to them, and then what are the next steps? What do we do after that?
So that's an excellent question, right? Right now, we know they're coming. We have a way to put questions in, which is on the website. We're going to take the questions tonight, and I'll put them on the email and on the website and email. But they're going to tell us a whole bunch of stuff. We may not like what they have to say, right? So then our committee is going to, our meeting is what, the following Tuesday? Is that the right, let me look at, yeah. So it's the fourth Tuesday. So I think our meeting's the following. At that meeting, we're going to probably just talk about what the Army Corps said, just try to figure out, okay, they said this, did they mean that? And you can go on Zoom and see the meeting. So it probably would be good for you just to listen to us, because I'm sure we're going to be disagreeing with each other. Peggy heard this, Andrew heard that, Stephen heard that, Tony did that. So out of that, I would expect that we're going to have a new list of questions that, like, okay, you said you're going to do this, but you said you're only going to do half of it. You're not doing this. So I would expect that we're going to have this process where we come up with questions, which would then probably forward to the Board of Trustees, and you can hear all of that. I had thought, after seeing the attendance tonight, and everybody's really trying to work together, that we have a follow-up meeting to just say, okay, we know what we heard, let's hear what you heard and what you think. So I'm thinking that right now, that's as little of the process as I know, that's what I know. So.
Can I just ask a stupid question?
No question is stupid.
Okay. Well, of the Village Board of Trustees, the Flood Committee, when are we going back to an in-person meeting?
We're back already.
You're back already? Fully? So last week was the last, so.
Some of the boards and committees are still in COVID land, but still.
So we're meeting in
Okay.
person?
Are you meeting in person or on Zoom?
So the question is, should we meet in person or in Zoom? On Zoom. Well, there's.
Well, don't get rid of the Zoom, because I can't always get to a meeting.
Well, that's what I've heard, right? Because they.
It's supplemental, it's good. You guys are right here in my pocket.
Okay, so the issue is whether to be in Zoom or in person. Excuse me. Roxanne. The bottom line is, and it's before the village board to make a final decision, but there is a lot of sentiment that's been expressed by members of different committees and boards to have a bifurcated meeting, i.e. where it is in person, under the new state law, and also in Zoom.
But the meeting is at the meeting. You can remote into the meeting, but the meeting is the meeting.
So you understand the protocol. When you Zoom in, you will be seen and you will be heard. Right now, when you Zoom in, sometimes you're seen, sometimes you're not. But under the new state law, it has to be.
You can see it sometimes, yeah.
But, so actually that's what's going to happen. But this young lady.
But let me just finish on that meeting. I think this next meeting we have is going to be by Zoom, because I have to get all those questions into the core. I'll talk to our committee members and see if can we get a spot to hold the meeting where LMC can also have you Zoom in. So it'll definitely be Zoom. It may be Zoom and in person.
Like I'm traveling that day.
You're traveling. So this has been, yeah, so I think for this meeting, it's going to be Zoom. Unless we can do both. All right. We'll try. We'll figure it out. Young lady, young woman. What was your name? I can't even say that name. My daughter says, Dad, don't you know their names? What's your name?
Andreen.
Andreen. Hi, Andreen.
Hi, everyone. My house is located at 915 Howard, right by the Hillside Avenue Church. And
So let me interrupt. I need someone to get flood marks from your area.
Sure, 5 feet inside the first floor.
So can somebody walk around with me this weekend, or?
I can go with you tomorrow.
All right, tomorrow. All right, we'll talk after.
Okay. So my house is located in the regulatory floodway, which means basically the river is my backyard. Now, the house across the street from me got over $100,000 to elevate, to mitigate flooding. So water didn't get all the way upstairs. I can't get that because I guess FEMA deems houses in that zone ineligible. And so my question, I guess, both for the Army Corps is whether or not they're going to be providing funding to help homeowners that want to avoid this problem in the future. Because my house is still sitting empty. I'm paying mortgage, I'm paying rent because I can't live there. And this has been going on for months. Obviously, I'm sure other people are in the same circumstance. So what I want to know is what the village is going to do to help homeowners who are looking to do that, or what the county is going to do, or the state or federal. I don't really care where the money comes from. I'm just asking what supports are there to help people that are in this situation? And I see question 7 here about can homes in the floodway be elevated? But I think the question is not can it, because it can be done. I could have done it already if I had the money. It's really what resources are available to help people do that. And if the Army Corps is going to provide that funding, can that be prioritized so it happens on the front end of the project and not 2 years down the road, since this is like I don't know if it's a 5-year project or whatever it is, but people need to get back into their homes.
All right, so Adrienne, a few minutes ago, so you have really valid points. A, we don't know how many houses the Corps is going to raise. We don't know if they're going to raise any. One of the problems that has been in this area is that many times the formula they use for giving you money to raise your house may work in Schoharie County upstate, but it definitely doesn't work in Mamaroneck. Oh, that's the buyback. At any rate, a few minutes ago I said one of our parallel paths is a vision for housing. And that's exactly what I'm saying. On those streets, are you next to the Baptist church?
No, I'm at the dead end.
Okay.
Small single-family house at the dead end.
Okay, so,
Near the Hillside Bridge, right?
Yes, but further.
right. So I think we need to think creatively. And one of your neighbors is a teacher who had my daughter in her class, so I know her. And when I spoke to her about could we come up with a different vision for these areas, she was excited. She says, Tony, we have to do something. And when I've spoken to some of the trustees individually, and they've said, we have to think differently. We have to think creatively. So I can't stand here and say I have any idea of how we're going to do it, but I believe we have to do it, and we have to do it better, and we're going to push on it, and it's going to be toward the top of at the top of the list, because people are out of their homes. It's hell. Excuse me. All right.
Question about the
All
more.
right, hang on. Laura's first.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
then-
I'm going to segue.
But you gotta be fast.
To the trustees. But I know you're trying to do a moratorium. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I mean, I don't know what the pluses and the minuses are. I don't want it to hurt the little guy. I don't, it's got to be done with the lawyers and put in all this other stuff. Maybe you can explain it a little bit better. The other thing is moving forward, if they're going to start building in the flood area, the flood mitigation and the trustees, there has to be new laws implicated with having flat roofs maybe, and having a water retention system on the roof where the water hits the roof, stays on there, and goes to the river slowly. I was driving around Mamaroneck, and there's a lot of flat roofs, especially the new buildings. The Mason and the Maple Rose, they all have flat roofs. I'm sure they can do something. This has to be, this has to be looked at by the trustees and especially the flood mitigation.
All right, so we have to look at these regulations, absolutely. All right, Laura, and then we're supposed to wrap it up at 10:02. So Laura, and is anyone else desperate to talk? No, you got to wait for Laura. Laura and then Daniel.
That's okay. But
Not
I
that
could
desperate.
say my name again. I'm Laura Body, The Flats, Washington Street. And what Bernie said I was going to mirror, because I could go into telling my story and how much we've lost and the devastation. And, the water is coming from the ground, and it's coming from 3 different points. Yes, there is an aquifer. I have a working well. Most of the houses in the flats have a working well. It was drained by Pure Food. That stopped. Water levels are rising from the ground, from the river, from 95, that's no doubt. From Gedney Pond, it's coming from the brook. It's coming from the dam. It's coming from the reservoir. We can go, what we've been asking, what we've been needing and requiring is parallel mitigation. And that parallel mitigation needed to be had in 1974, 1984, 1994. Here we are in the here and now. And the only thing we have right now is control. And what we have is that we're all in this same room together wanting that control. The control that has to come is from our board, our village, and the people that we're entrusting to ensure that this job gets done. Where the control has to come in and the tightening of the ship are the committees and the approvals and the sanctions and the checklists and the to-dos and the building and the ill building, which causes water pooling. I mean, this is all a big mess. But we have control. We have the ability to stop and rethink everything. But we don't have time to rethink everything for years. We have to stop and rethink an emergency code, an emergency violate, an emergency, I don't know, from here to the sky emergency. It has to be the here and now. We have to come up with emergency plans to make it happen because we have to be protected. It can rain tonight and I will lose everything again, or what is left to lose, I should say. And I don't know how much we can take. You know, a home can only get hit so many times before it becomes uninhabitable. And our village needs to minus out those homes that are in that condition and not consider rebuilding for some time. You have to fix your foundation before you start to add any more into a place that's already overburdened. And that's what I hope we can do as a community, is to rethink everything we do. Just like, for instance, they were talking about, for an example, the building on Van Rance. And one of the committee members really had no idea how many feet of water Columbus Park had. If Modern on the Rails flooded, you could do simple math to figure that out. But here we have a board approving or trying to approve a building to be built, and they have no knowledge of what has gone on. So that's what has to be rethunk, or probably just said that wrong, but the people that are making choices for us possibly shouldn't be in the seats that they're in. Because their inability to think out of the box causes us, all of us, grave danger. Because Mr. Young knows exactly how many feet of water was in Columbus Park. He could recite that. But you know it because you touched it, you felt it, you walked it, you experienced it. So you have that knowledge to make those choices and decisions. Just like I touched it and feel it. The people in Heights are touching and feeling it. Everybody's giving pertinent information. But the people who are not walking it and touching it and feeling it shouldn't be able to make a decision for us. And that's what scares me the most. But we're moving forward, the village is taking action, they're getting their hands dirty, they're doing their thing. We need to keep the momentum going. But we need to hit the ground running because it's gonna rain, and when it rains, and it's gonna go for 3 days, I fear the worst.
Thank you, Laura. I said Daniel, go ahead. You got to be fast, Daniel.
Continuing on that, on Waverly Avenue, the complex big building was built a few years ago. They raised.
Which one, the Mason?
Is that the Mason? I think so, yeah, yes. They raised the ground several feet.
It's a horror show. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a horror show. You look down that path, there's no place for that river to go.
Right.
And they have piles of bricks or rocks, right?
They did something to that stream.
That's what you'd like, the rocks you're talking about, right? Where can the water go? It can't go in. And that's why I think, and Laura said this when we did the walkthrough, the river's trying to get to Columbus Park. Now, when it gets to Columbus Park, it is another problem. But now with that building there, it can't get to Columbus Park.
And going
So I don't know how to solve these problems, but at least we're aware of them.
And
All right, so
I'm not sure who mentioned about the construction going on Boston Road. So, to highlight that point, before they pour concrete, because I don't think we could put dynamites and blow up the concrete. I know how to do that. We've done it in the city to build tunnels and stuff.
no dynamite.
But, yeah, so let's not put that concrete in, because they work in there.
All right.
The minute they choke it, it's not going back.
That's true. All right, so,
Thank you.
right, so, and then we know Harrison is building houses that are going to add to the flooding problem. So, as Laura said, this thing goes on and on. So, that's it for tonight. So listen, everybody, thank you for coming. You know, I know we're not solving your problems, but we're trying to move this Titanic in the right direction. So thank you all. As Laura said, keep pushing. What did you say, Laura? Keep controlling whatever we're doing. Thanks, everybody.